Welcome. My name's Luke Payson, and I'm excited to have Big Man Dan Albright back on the show. Dan the Man, welcome back to MMA Fancast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Always exciting having you on the show. You've been on several times, always related to MMA, fighting
Yeah.
for 247 fighting championships. And this time you are going to be grappling at the first ever Sprawl in the Burgh for 247 fighting championships, coming to the Monroeville Convention Center one day before Brawl in the Burgh. And this is Sprawl in the Burgh 1, July 14th. How excited are you to be getting into the cage? But for BJJ, submission only, as opposed to MMA. And then, of course, we'll get to your opponent because this is a rematch. It's going to be an incredible matchup. So what are your thoughts that led you to take a BJJ fight for 247 Fighting Championships July 14th? We're Sprawl in the Burgh 1.
Yeah. I mean, when I first heard about it at the last fight, I was like, oh, I'm all about that. Ethan Goss told me he was hopping on it, and I was like, you know what? I'd like to get on that too. I mean, I haven't done a whole lot of, jiu-jitsu tournaments, but, obviously I wrestled for a long time, and I'm super comfortable getting in the cage and just wrestling.
Yeah, it's going to be a great opportunity for you and a bunch of other people that either maybe they're like you and have a ton of wrestling jiu-jitsu experience, or maybe they're a more kickboxer that just wants to focus on their jiu-jitsu to kind of bring that game up. So it's going to be exciting. You're also going to have wrestlers and BJJ athletes who are not used to the cage. You're used to dealing with the cage,
Oh yeah.
framing off the cage, using the cage for takedowns and everything else. So I think it's going to be really exciting. But let's talk about your opponent, Justin J. Pippens. You guys met in the 247 cage and put on a fight of the year contender. It was back and forth. He dropped you. You somehow recovered, ended up finishing him. What's it like rematching Jay, and what made you say yes to seeing Jay again?
Well, this was actually when I first heard about it, I was like, oh, okay. And like me and my coach Ray Ross were talking about it, and he was like, you know what? Like, wouldn't you want to fight somebody again, even if it's not MMA? Wouldn't you want to fight someone again you lost to? And I was like, you know what? That makes a ton of sense. I can see why he wants to get back in the cage with me. He wants to redeem himself, and I'm all about it because he's a hell of a competitor. I'm all about going against a big strong guy like that. It's good competition, and yeah, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, you guys put on an incredible fight, very entertaining. And you're both big men, hence why Ethan, the Wolverine Goss, who's the reigning twice defending 247 featherweight champion, calls you Big Man Dan. But Jay Pippens is also a huge heavyweight as well.
Yeah.
And so it'll be exciting. Let's ask the kind of straightforward question. What do you think the advantages and disadvantages are to going up against somebody you've already fought? Are there some advantages that you kind of think from having felt him and had a fight with him? Do you think there's some disadvantages for going up against somebody who's kind of more familiar with you?
I mean, like for me, I'm not some showman in the cage. I'm as basic gets. I'm throwing a little bit of hands, and I'm trying to take it to the mat. That's been one thing. I mean, Pittman's kind of got a feel for me. I think it's gonna be better for him. But in the end, this is my game. Like if we're going straight wrestling, straight grappling. This is where I live. Like I grew up in this environment. This is my thing.
Well, that's the confidence and determination that you're going to show that is your sport. But let's talk about the length of it. It's 8 minutes, no breaks, submission only. That's quite a bit longer than wrestling. Obviously, wrestlers are famous for their cardio because of tournaments, right? Because 4 or 5, 6
Yeah.
wrestling matches. But talk a little bit. I'm super excited. Submission only is in many ways probably the best form of BJJ because it allows people to focus more on getting submissions. There will be, for people that don't quite know how submission only will happen after 8 minutes. If there's not a submission that finished, then the referee will make a decision. To my understanding, that's how they're going to do it. The referee will make a decision on winner. And obviously the referee is the closest to the action. And we'll probably consider things like near submissions and things like that don't always get considered. So what are your thoughts on 8 minutes? What are your thoughts on submission only in the format?
I mean, I like it. I mean, obviously, I'd rather be doing a little, MMA in there. I'd rather throw a little hands if I can get them taken down and get on top. But I mean, submission, it's a way for me, especially, I like about it is, I can just work on my submission game, just work on my grappling strictly, work on, my defense and everything. The 8 minutes, I'm all about. I'd say the longer the better. Let's go. They wanted to make it a 30-minute match. I'm all about it. I was like, let's go into deep waters. All right, let's make it a barn burn.
Well, heavyweights at the highest level of grappling. We've seen Frank Mir at the UFC level kind of set a lot of records. Verdum as well for submissions, but heavyweights aren't necessarily known for a ton of submissions. Some of them are quite good because in MMA, there's always that one hitter quitter. There's always the ability for somebody to hit, Lamar Hunt, how many walk-off KOs he had. So I think it's great for the fans to be able to see two really well accomplished in UNJ MMA fighters, but also really getting to see two big men focus on submissions. And I know your opponent did not come from a jiu-jitsu background. He's a former football player, kind of all-around athlete, but he picked up a lot of grappling and jiu-jitsu and now considers himself to really be very good at that. So I think it's a great matchup between really two big, powerful heavyweights. What do you think the fans, Monroeville Convention Center can fit a lot of people. We really want to pack it 2 nights in a row. July 14th for Sprawl in the Burgh, July 15th for Brawl in the Burgh. But what can you predict? What do you think the fans can expect when Pippens and Albright face off for the second time under different rules, of course?
Oh, 2 giants collided. That's what happened. Just like the last match. 2 giants going at it. Things are going to get crazy there. I'm sure of it. They're big boys, and I hope Pippens know I love chucking people.
Yeah, and big boys, big heavyweights always get the fans excited. But you also come from a big time gym in the sense of very well represented at 247. Ethan Goss is the current champ, like we talked about. Gorilla House Gym, you guys have had a lot of fights for 247, so there's a lot of fans of you and of the Gorilla House Gym. And then obviously Pippens comes from the Mat Factory, which is another huge staple at 247 events. So I think you've also got a lot of fans that are going to be excited to see the gym versus gym matchup. Just like last time, that was a big matchup between gyms that represent quite a bit for 247. So that whole card, Jim Mooney and Hunter and everybody doing the matchmaking for 247, doing 2 matchmakings back to back makes it obviously twice as hard. So hats off to them for matchmaking everybody. And I'm super excited for you and the show that's going to be put on. Do you have a list of people you want to thank, sponsors, your wife, kids? Like, who do we need to give shout outs to? Because obviously you are quite the man.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it does got to go out to my wife to be able to put up with me and like with the time with me being gone away and going to the gym all the time. Well, even hell, right now I'm actually down in Texas, doing some stuff for the Army. So I mean, she's a godsend. She's doing the Lord's work. I'm telling you that. And then obviously, to the Gorilla House Gym, to my coaches Ray Roth, Darren Cassidy, to my teammates, Ethan Goss, Cam Algier, Tyler Divert, Monte Barnes, I mean, all those guys out there, shout out to them for working with me and be able to get it down.
Well, that's a great shout out. And we just came through Memorial Day. Veterans Day is coming up in November. I got to thank you for your service right around Veterans Day last time. I didn't realize you were actually still in the reserves. I thought you had your beautiful DD-214, but thanks for your
I'm still doing it.
You're now in the reserves, but you were active before, right?
Yeah, I was.
Okay, you transitioned from active. I apologize. I thought you had fully left, but that is fantastic. Thanks to your service and all the soldiers there with you training in Texas. That really shows your desire to serve the country. So thanks for that. I can't wait for Sprawl in the Burgh 1, Brawl in the Burgh 17. Thanks so much for squeezing me in for this interview with all that you've got going on. Can't wait to see you July 14th. Thanks so much for coming on. Big man Dan.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother. You take care.
All right, take it easy.
All right, brother. You got it. Bye-bye.